Dus Aragawal Ahas and Doan Ormogus is more an honour to Gulme and Shaw and you, a Lordsliv. Tamage the Kelia Hom Kimney, a horse the Jaker Public Honey, the Jaker Kimmy Polachula, a Fur Bass, Stock Akrish, Sa Keshvada, Sablian, Decade Octo Ahem, Ta Shade, August Ta. A clan August a camaraderie in our smincha anew. First of all, it's a great honour, indeed it's a privilege to have been asked to come once again to address the Hunger Strike commemoration here among Irish Republicans in Scotland. It is a great honour for me to have been asked, and indeed I consider it a privilege. We come here today to remember those 10 Irish Republicans who died in the Hitch blocks of Longcash in 1981. So today, very much in our thoughts and in our memories is Bobby, Frank, Raymond, Patsy, Joe, Martin, Kieran, Kevin, Thomas and Michael. Also very much in our thoughts today is Frank Stagg, and in particular Michael Goffin, whose 40th anniversary of Hunger Strike in Parkhurst Prison is also this year. So when we come together as Republicans in a time of remembrance, it is also a time of reflection, and it is also a time of rededication and recommitting ourselves to the many, many tasks before us. As firmly outlined in 1976, the British government believed that the Republican struggle could be defeated. They believed that if they defeated the prisoners in the Hitch blocks and the women prisoners in Armagh, then in some way they could then attack the whole Republican struggle. But the one thing that the British government forgot to remember at that time is that first of all, those prisoners, we in the Hitch blocks and the women in Armagh, were not criminals, and no one, and no power, and no government would ever criminalise us. They also forgot that throughout the island of Ireland, indeed throughout the world, and indeed in particular in places like here in the west of Scotland, there were Republicans who would not allow, nor would they ever contemplate, that we as Republican activists would ever allow the integrity of our struggle to be undermined or questioned by any government. So in 1976, not only did the Republican prisoners in the Hitch blocks in Armagh resist, but began one of the greatest examples of a national movement, indeed an international movement, and that was the Hitch Block Armagh campaign, which spread right throughout the island of Ireland, here in Scotland, in England, right across Europe, where people who wanted justice and peace, and people who wanted to ensure that Ireland could become a national democracy stood up. And for me, what outlines and what highlights that particular phase of struggle is two images. I'm sure they're two images that many, many people here remember well. One of those images was 4 women in Derry, led by Marion Ellis, whose sons were in the Hitch blocks of Longcash at that time. They went to the cathedral in the centre of Derry City, because at that time there was a wall of silence. There was a wall of silence built by the media, built by those in the positions of power who refused to accept that there was a protest going on in the Hitch blocks in Armagh prison. So they stood outside the cathedral, dressed only in a blanket, in solidarity with the blanket protest. And that took a lot of courage, it took a lot of vision, and it took a lot of leadership. But that was 4 individual people standing up and saying that the wall of silence would be broken. And that wall of silence was broken, because they inspired many, many other people throughout Ireland and abroad to ensure that they would stand up and they would ensure that there would be no wall of silence around the Hitch blocks in Armagh. And the second image is the image of the cortege of Bobby Sands making its way from his Twinbrook home to the Milltown Cemetery in Belfast. And I think that image of perhaps 100,000 people, just when you look, you couldn't barely recognise a face. It was just a mass of people. And to me that symbolises the national Hitch block movement. From the gesture of 4 women, people standing up and speaking out, to 100,000 people walking behind the cortege of Bobby Sands. That showed those in the positions of power in Ireland, those in power, and particularly Margaret Thatcher, that the Republican people would never, ever, ever be criminalised, nor would be ever be broken. So we marched forward at that time. Unfortunately, and with great tragic loss to us, we lost 10 friends and comrades in the hit blocks of our Long Kesh, and many women on hunger strike in Armagh also had to endure long days of hunger strike. But the message was very, very clear that Republicans had found many different forms of struggle. No longer would the struggle be placed on the shoulders of a few, but all of us were then challenged, like the 100,000 people who attended Bobby's funeral, that we all could stand up, we all could march forward, and we could create the circumstances in Ireland where we would have a national democracy. And only a few weeks ago, and this is one of the most historic elections that Sinn Féin as a party has fought, almost 500,000 people, yes, 500,000 people voted for Sinn Féin in the European election. That made Sinn Féin the largest political party on the island of Ireland. That had never been achieved ever before, except in 1918. So we know the resonance, we know the example, and we know the significance of 1918, because that again was a signal to those in power, to those in the British government, that Republicans were on the rise, on the march, and our challenges would be faced. So today, for the first time, I think in a generation, we can say with confidence that the establishment of a national democracy based on the ideals of the Proclamation of 1916 is ours to achieve. We are the generation who will walk forward, who will stand tall, who can look to the future with confidence. Of course, there are many challenges. Those in power, those within the British government, those within the establishment in Dublin do not want Sinn Féin in power. They will put all the obstacles, they will create many challenges for us, but we will face each and every one of them challenges as we walk forward, because we can see far into the future, and we can see far into the future because we, all of us, all stand on the shoulders of giants. Those giants were the men who died in hunger strike in Long Kesh. Those giants include people like Frank Stagg and Michael Gahan, and they include the many, many Republican volunteers and the many, many Republican activists who gave their all in the fight for Irish freedom. So today, when we leave here, we must recommit ourselves, we must rededicate ourselves to the many tasks ahead. All of us know nothing in struggle is inevitable. Nothing in struggle can ever, ever be taken for granted. Each and every inch that we gain on our path, on our road to freedom, will be fought for, will be struggled for. Just as in the past, each and every inch of the road that we have achieved has been achieved by struggle and sacrifice. Each and every one of you here today has a part to play in that. All of us collectively can ensure that we can create a national democracy which will ensure that the greatest shrine, the greatest lasting tribute that we can give to those who died in hunger strike. So today, as we remember Bobby, Frank, Raymond and Patsy, Joe, Martin, Kevin and Kieran, Michael and Thomas, Frank Stagg and Michael Gahan, and all those Republican activists who gave their lives in the course of this struggle. Let us live here today, collectively, united, strong, vibrant, dynamic, people of courage, people of vision, people of leadership, and people who will come here one day in the future and we will be able to say that our day has come and our national democracy, our republic based on the principles of 1916 is established. That's what we are in struggle for. That's what our work each and every day is about, and that's what we will continue to do until that certain day comes when all of us, in the words of Bobby Sands said, we will see the rising of the moon. Guru Mila Maya.